Welcome back to another Escape From Tarkov gun build overview. I have 3 builds to cover today, and once I've shown them, I'm going to suggest some possible changes and then have a discussion about how I think these builds should be used. Before I get into the builds, I just want to talk a bit about the SR25, and before that, I just want to let you guys know that I am sick, so I'm going to sound a bit different today. It's not COVID, it's just a flu. I get that like 1 to 3 times a year. Getting back to the gun, the SR25 is currently not the best 7.62x51 DMR, so this video isn't going to be about meta builds or anything like this. It's strictly going to be focused on a low tier version, a mid tier version, and a high tier version, comparable to just the mods that work for it. I don't really want to focus on a comparison to the M1A or the RSAS this time though, because that's not really the intent of this video. With that out of the way, the other thing I wanted to mention is that this video will likely become out of date with future content patches. They recently added another AR10 mod which works for the SR25. It's not better, I think it's just kind of like a side grade, but they probably will add more in future patches. So if you're interested in seeing a remake of this video, say in 13.1 or 13.2 when they add more of those, let me know in the comments of those future videos if you remember. Now, let's get into the low tier build. My focus with this build is to make a low tier, low level build that people around level 15 to 25 can use. To start with, I use a stock SR25 from Peacekeeper 3, and then I grab an EMOD stock, an M-Lock 4.1 guide, and an RVG foregrip. Next, we need a Monstrum 2X scope and a Hogue overmolded black rubber pistol grip. I choose the 2X here because it still gives decent range and works relatively well in CQB. With a gun like this, having a 1X feels pointless because the SR25 is not really good for CQB situations, and having a 1X 4X combo is a bit more expensive, so for a low tier build, having something in between works great. The build comes out to 65 ergo and 127 vertical recoil, which is great for level 25 or 15 to 25, and works well as a sniper DMR, much like the next build. I don't suggest changing too many parts, as this isn't supposed to be too expensive, and you can quickly ramp up the cost for this build. The next build is the mid-tier build. This is a build I expect players from level 27 will be able to use well, as many of the parts come from level 3 Peacekeeper, and it tends to be a bit more expensive than the low-tier build, as we have to replace a few parts. Starting with the stock build, we need to replace the 16-inch barrel with a 20-inch barrel. Hold on to the gas block from the 16-inch barrel so you don't have to rebuy it, and only sell the 16-inch barrel itself. Next, you'll want to replace the KAC flash hider with a Lantac Dragon. If you want to go suppressed, keep the KAC flash hider and grab the KAC QDC suppressor. Next, grab a 4.1 M-Lock guide and an RVG foregrip. After that, you'll want to grab the Growl S pistol grip, a CTR Blackstock, or the M1A Blackstock with a rubber butt pad if it's cheaper. And the last item on our list is an LCAN. Because we went a bit more expensive, spending the extra money on a 1/4x variable scope is worth it. If you prefer another scope, such as the Bravo or Valde, go ahead and grab that instead. The build comes to a total of 64 ergonomics and 98 vertical recoil, making it a great sniper DMR, like the previous build. If you want a bit more ergo, you can opt for a different charge handle. I think there's the ambidextrous KAC handle, which adds 1 ergonomics, a different foregrip, and an advanced buffer tube, but this is going to cost quite a bit more, especially if the advanced buffer tubes are more expensive at the time. The final build today is going to be the high tier build. This is a build that you'll probably want to be level 44 so that you can at least get the trader prices for the parts, and hopefully some of the parts are cheaper on Flea. Starting with the base SR25 from Peacekeeper, like the mid-tier build, we are going to replace the 16-inch barrel with a 20-inch barrel. Remember to keep the gas block, as that's at least an extra 4K from traders if you lose it. Next, you'll want to replace the buffer tube with an advanced tube, and if the red one is cheaper than the normal one, use that instead. Next, grab a PRS Gen 3 Blackstock, an M-Lock 4.1 guide, and an SE5 Express grip. Next, you'll want to swap out the charging handle with the ambidextrous KAC AR10 charge handle, and swap out the pistol grip for an HK PSG-1 pistol grip. For the optics, I went with a SIG Bravo and a PKO6 on top. It's fairly expensive, but it's definitely one of my favorite setups for this gun. The final parts we need are a blast mitigator setup, so you'll need a Landtag Dragon, an A3 adapter, and the blast mitigation device itself. With all of these parts, the gun ends up with a solid 60 or 76 ergonomics and 90 vertical recoil, making it the most ergonomic and controllable of the 3 builds. As with previous builds, I suggest using the gun mostly as a sniper DMR, as the recoil is still fairly high to be quickly firing it controllably. One of my thoughts for this video was to make some suggestions for you guys. I'm going to just list some suggestions or alternate choices for parts for each of the builds. For the low tier build, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go with an L-can instead of the Monstrum if you're willing to pay a bit more, as the 1x, 4x capability can be really nice on maps like Interchange, though the 2x is still very capable in this situation. Another suggestion is to possibly swap out the 16-inch barrel for a 20-inch, but this will make the build cost quite a bit more. For the mid-tier build, going suppressed isn't a bad choice, as this already has fairly high recoil, so the added recoil won't come at too much of a cost, and the KC QDC is also fairly inexpensive when it comes to suppressors, so it's generally a great option if you want to take a more silent approach. If advanced buffer tubes are cheap, as I mentioned in the build itself, these are a great addition for a bit more recoil reduction and ergonomics. If you manage to unlock Peacekeeper 4-2, which is at level 28 I think, going with a blast mitigator setup here isn't a bad choice as well, but it will make the build cost quite a bit more. For the final build, there isn't really much to change here, at least referring to the components that affect ergo and recoil. However, I think swapping out the optics wouldn't be a bad idea. There are quite a few mounts for actual sniper scopes that can have a 1x optic like the PK06 on top, and have a few variable scopes with 1x 6x capability too that cost a bit more, but for maps like Shoreline, Woods, and the front part of Interchange, I think the scav camps and big parking lot area would work really well. Honestly, any of these optics would work well, so if you have a sniper scope you prefer to the Bravo, that's not a bad choice for this build. Alright, for the last part of this video, I wanted to just have a discussion about the builds. Again, I'm not going to be comparing it to the M1A or RSAS, as I already have a video talking about that and what I think about their current implementation, and I'll leave a link to that down below. Once you have access to the mid-tier and high-tier build, it's not really going to be worth running the lower-tier build, as it will still be quite expensive, so I suggest just using the high or mid-tier build when you have access to it. Possibly just swapping out the parts to make it cheaper if you want a more budgety style build. All of these builds are very capable as long as you treat them more like semi-auto snipers and not battle rifles like the M1A. The high ergo will make scoping in on targets nice, and follow-up shots still reliable with sub 130 recoil, just don't expect to drop Altons from 20 feet away with a rapid spray. Overall, I hope these builds helped or inspired you to make your own. Thank you for watching. I know lately my videos have been coming out less frequently, and I apologize for that. And now, here's Future Orin popping in for a second. Previously, I had a bit about how I've been struggling to get back into the groove, but I think I have a solution. If you guys want to stay more up to date with the behind the scenes, check out the Discord using the link below. I try to frequently post about what's going on with the channel in there, and if I do any streams out of the blue, I also post them in there. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, as both of these help the channel with YouTube's algorithm and help me get a gauge on what I'm doing well and what I'm not. If you have any feedback as well, feel free to also leave a comment. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.